A young man who had just lost several fingers was crying on the phone to his boss when a devastating punch suddenly knocked him flat. The man immediately opened the car door and dragged him onto the ground. The kid desperately begged for his life. "Name your price. I'll pay anything." But the man wasn't there for money. He was there to kill. After tying up his target, he calmly walked back to the car, popped the hood, started the engine, and engaged the throttle lock. The vehicle instantly began accelerating. "My name is Adam Clay. I'm a quiet man who keeps to himself. The only company I have is the bees in my barn." What nobody knows is that this beekeeper was once a top assassin for a secret organization called the Beekeepers, an organization that operates beyond America's normal power structure. Even a president isn't untouchable if they threaten the balance we protect. I grew tired of a life filled with bloodshed and chose to retire. I rented a barn from Eloise, a retired schoolteacher. To her, I seemed more like a child who needed looking after. She was always checking in on me one way or another. The moment she saw me outside, she hurried over and kindly asked what I was carrying. I told her it was a nasty hornet nest. If I didn't remove it, my honeybees would die. What I didn't know was that this would be our final conversation. "Come over for dinner tonight. I'll make something for you." I sincerely thanked her for the invitation. After returning home, I prepared a large piece of fresh honeycomb, planning to bring it over as a gift to repay her kindness. But life rarely goes as planned. While checking her bank statement, a red warning suddenly appeared, claiming her computer was infected and needed immediate help. She had no anti-scam protection and innocently called the number displayed on the screen. Unfortunately, the person on the other end was part of a professional scam ring. The caller was the company's manager. He lied and said the warning came from their antivirus software. Then he told her that her computer was outdated and needed an upgrade before the virus could be removed. Not knowing any better, she followed his instructions and downloaded remote access software. Moments later, her entire screen was mirrored onto the scammer's giant monitor. Her $2 million savings account appeared right in front of them. The manager nearly lost his mind when he saw the balance. At the same time, her computer started opening random windows. He claimed it was a system error and offered compensation. When she logged into her bank account, she saw an extra $50,000 had supposedly been deposited. The manager immediately began acting. "I've made a terrible mistake. I was only supposed to send you $500. I'm going to lose my job. I even have children to support." "No, actually, I don't have children. But please, can you send the money back?" Being kind-hearted, she agreed to help him, but the outcome was obvious. The moment she entered her banking password, the screen went black. Meanwhile, the scammers celebrated wildly after stealing another massive fortune. That saying couldn't be more true. It's not that you'll never be scammed, it's that you haven't met the perfect trap yet. When she restarted her computer, she discovered that every dollar she had saved over a lifetime was gone. Even the charity fund she had devoted herself to had vanished. Her hope completely collapsed. "What have I done?" Elsewhere, I filled a large jar with fresh honey and carefully placed a label on it. Then I walked to her house and knocked on the door. When no one answered, I gently stepped inside. The house reeked of burnt food, and the smoke alarm was blaring. Something felt wrong, so I picked up a small knife on my way in. But when I entered, the first thing I saw was a gun. Eloise had taken her own life. Before I could even process it, a woman appeared with a firearm and ordered me to put my hands behind my back. "Who the hell are you? And what are you doing in my mother's house?" "Verona, I'm truly sorry. How do you know my name?" "Mom." Seeing her mother's body, Verona, a police officer, immediately treated me as a suspect. But her colleagues believed her mother's death was most likely a suicide. But Verona refused to believe it. Her mother loved life more than anyone. No matter how much I explained, she trusted her own judgment. It wasn't until that night, when she searched through her mother's computer, that she realized she had misjudged me. By then, I had been brought back for questioning. One of her colleagues shared the forensic results. There were no traces of gunpowder on my hands, and the fingerprints on the gun belonged to her mother. Unfortunately, it really looked like a suicide. Later, Verona came to me and sincerely apologized. I understood her reaction and offered to sit with her for a while. She thanked me for keeping her mother company over the years. I simply said that growing old can be a lonely thing. People go from being the center of a family to becoming invisible. I understood Eloise well. Then Verona told me what had driven her mother to this. After retiring, Eloise ran a charity for children. It was the one thing that still gave meaning to her life. But the scammers stole everything, her savings, her pension, all of it. She died in despair. I immediately asked who was responsible. Verona said the gang had been operating for 2 years, but nobody knew who was really behind it. And even if they did, proving it in court would be difficult. Defense lawyers would claim everything was done willingly. What could anyone do about it? I didn't answer, but stealing from the elderly is worse than stealing from children. When children lose something, they still have parents to protect them. When the elderly are hurt, they face it alone. I frowned as the anger inside me slowly rose. It was time for me to step in. I picked up the jar of honey I never got to give her and left. Then I retrieved a foil-wrapped box from a shelf in the bee barn. Inside was a dusty satellite phone. It was time to become Adam Clay again. "What are you doing? I thought you retired." "I did, but I need a favor." "What kind?" "A name and an address." The reply came back almost immediately. The organization was powerful, with operations across the globe. That didn't matter. I'd start with the nearest hive. I climbed into my pickup and headed straight there. Carrying 2 cans of gasoline, I told the guard I was there to burn the building down. The guard burst out laughing. He told me to get lost before I attracted attention. Then he warned that if I was still there by the count of 3, bullets would start start flying. 2, 3. Alright, I gave you your chance. And what happens when you reach 3? What are you going to do about it? Next, I walked to the reception desk and told the woman I was about to burn the place down. I suggested she evacuate everyone first. She probably thought I was strangely considerate for an arsonist. Then I headed straight into the main hall. The thug by the entrance was unlucky. I jammed a finger into his nose and forced him off his phone. Then I stood in the middle of the room and addressed everyone. Listen up. Repeat after me. I will never scam the weak and vulnerable again. I've just sent you a download link. Of course, nobody took me seriously. Fine, you'll be first. That got their attention. Suddenly, everyone stood frozen like obedient schoolchildren. Repeat after me. I will never scam the weak and vulnerable again. Then I poured gasoline across the desk, sending the entire room into a panic. It's gasoline. Gasoline. Hey, hey. At that moment, the manager arrived with several security guards after hearing the commotion. He warned me to leave immediately. This operation is worth millions. You can't afford to mess with it. When I ignored him, he ordered the guards to beat me into the ground. Unfortunately for them, they weren't even enough to slow me down. The manager started trembling, but instead of attacking him, I pulled out 2 blocks of C4 and attached them to the fuel cans. Then I wired the bomb into the building's phone system. If another victim called in, this building would disappear. After that, I calmly walked away. The manager nearly wet himself and sprinted outside. Right on cue, a phone rang. The manager's world collapsed. He immediately called headquarters, but the boss was just a spoiled rich kid obsessed with pleasure. After learning the building had gone up in flames, he turned to the company's protector, Wallace. Wallace carried serious influence. He was a former CIA director, so the kid invented a fictional friend. Let's say a friend of mine owned a call center, and someone burned it down, maybe killed a few people. Could you find him? Find him? Yeah, handle the problem. The old man clearly had no interest in dealing with something this petty. With no other option, the curly-haired brat pretended to stay calm. He ordered his staff to track me through the company's cloud records and hired a group of killers to deal with me. Meanwhile, I had already returned home and gone back to tending my bees. Before long, the manager arrived to scout the area. He was convinced that an old woman with only one daughter couldn't possibly fight back. Just as they were about to leave, they spotted my pickup truck. Suddenly, the trip seemed worthwhile. They secretly followed me to the bee farm. When they saw the hives, the manager gave a signal and his men started smashing them. My poor bees became innocent victims, but I had already noticed I was being followed, so I entered the barn first and switched on every machine. The men assumed I was scared and confidently marched inside to continue wrecking the place. Where are you, beekeeper? You hiding, you coward? When I didn't respond, the manager grew even more confident and started shouting louder and louder. Die, you son of a bitch. What he didn't realize was that real predators stay hidden in the dark, waiting for the perfect moment to quietly eliminate their targets one by one. The moment he saw me strike back, the manager suddenly transformed into the world's worst marksman. Damn it, can somebody help me? I'm okay. I appeared behind him and ignored his screams, then used a cutting tool to take one of his fingers. No, oh god. After that, I slung my backpack over my shoulder and walked away. I knew this manager would eventually lead me straight to everyone behind the operation. Meanwhile, Verona learned that the scam center had been blown apart and immediately felt better. She even took the opportunity to mock the scammers online. Nice shirt, by the way. Did you dig it out of a coffin, you piece of trash? Oh, her partner quickly stopped her. Then Verona stared at the burned-down warehouse and fell into thought. Her colleagues suddenly wondered if the beekeeper might be responsible for the destroyed scam center. The beekeeper? Not long after, the manager fled to a bridge and called his boss, Danforth, while crying. At that moment, Danforth was enjoying some ridiculous cosmic meditation session when he heard that all his men were dead and the manager had lost a finger. At least he was lucky enough to survive. What the hell, man? Oh my god. I dragged him out of the car, bringing us right back to the opening scene. Then I walked to the truck bed and gently brushed my old work gear. I knew that once I crossed this line, my peaceful life would be over, but I flipped the switch anyway. What the hell is this? Stop the car. No. Next, I picked up the phone that was still connected and called my next target. Danforth answered surprisingly politely. Who the hell are you? You just destroyed a call center worth millions. Now I'm going to burn you alive. You haven't even told me your name yet. I gave you mine. You'd better remember it, because if you fail to burn me, I'll burn you instead. Understood? You're taking on something far bigger than you can handle. You sound young. I bet you haven't even prepared a will. I'm 28. Why would I need one? But Danforth was nothing more than a dead duck still flapping its beak. The moment he hung up, he ran straight to Wallace for help. But Wallace only needed to see the reports for his head to start aching. He bluntly told Danforth that he had stepped on a landmine. This wasn't an ordinary beekeeper. I was a top operative from the secret organization known as the Beekeepers. If he says you're dying today, you won't live to see tomorrow. Danforth immediately lost his mind and called Wallace useless. But Wallace reminded him that he had spent 35 years serving the government to reach his position. His role at the company existed only to protect the business interests of Danforth's mother's family. Instead, he spent every day cleaning up Danforth's messes. Then he headed back to the police station. There, Willie told Verona they couldn't find a single trace of Adam. I didn't have a bank account, a credit card, or even a history of air travel. There weren't even fingerprints matching me in any database. Verona wondered if I had once been military, but Willie disagreed. He's a ghost, or Adam Clay never existed at all. Hearing that made them uneasy, because it suggested I might be carrying carrying out a highly classified mission. Just then, Willie received a phone call. Garnett, the manager, had been found. At the same time, Danforth's mother called Wallace. She hoped he could help her son survive what was coming. The moment she asked, the old man immediately agreed. Turns out Wallace had a serious soft spot for her. "I still think about you sometimes." The old man was practically grinning from ear to ear. The second he hung up, Wallace made another call. This time to the current CIA director, someone he had personally mentored. But when she heard the target was a beekeeper, she bluntly told him to start planning his funeral. Meanwhile, Verona returned to the scene and recovered Garnett's body from the river. I was causing chaos up front while the police were stuck cleaning up behind me. Soon after, the CIA director called Wallace back and informed him that the beekeeper he was hunting had already retired. However, the current beekeeper was willing to handle the problem personally. That finally put Wallace at ease. He was then connected to the organization itself. This was the central command of the beekeepers. An operator received the order to eliminate me. Meanwhile, I was heading toward the scam empire's headquarters. After filling up my truck, I picked up the jar of honey I never got to give away. My thoughts were interrupted by screeching brakes as a woman with messy hair stepped out and opened fire. "Damn it, excuse me for a second. I don't mind. You're a busy little bee, aren't you? Weren't you supposed to be retired? So you're the one who replaced me." Once she realized she couldn't beat me hand to hand, she pulled out a heavy weapon. People with poor skills always seem to carry extra equipment. Without hesitation, she unleashed a storm of bullets like she'd lost her mind. Watching her spray rounds everywhere, I almost felt insulted. I grabbed the honey jar and hurled it straight at her. The woman was instantly stunned. Then I flicked open a lighter and tossed it onto the pickup truck. The flames immediately engulfed her position. Surrounded by fire, she had no way to fight back. I calmly turned and walked away. Then I remembered one last thing. I picked up a small knife and went back for one of her fingers. After that, I looked at the trembling driver hiding nearby. I borrowed his keys and drove off in his vehicle. At the same time, Wallace received word that the mission had failed. The CIA director informed him that the beekeepers had reviewed the situation and chosen to remain neutral. From that point on, he would be on his own. Wallace was furious. Elsewhere, the police were once again forced to investigate another crime scene. This time, they discovered a new clue, a beekeeping notebook inside the assassin's vehicle. Just like me, she left behind no traceable records. It appeared we belonged to the same organization. Based on my route, Verona concluded that I was heading for Boston. Meanwhile, Wallace launched his counterattack, assembling a team of elite former operatives and preparing them for war. Wallace explained that my organization had been created by past leaders and operated completely outside the official system. A nation is like a beehive. Its operatives are worker bees, each performing a role to quietly preserve order. And elite operatives like me are called beekeepers. According to him, I had gone rogue and become obsessed with destruction. After finishing his speech, the old man poured fuel on the fire. "To Adam, you're all useless, but at least there are plenty of you. Together, you might stand a chance." That challenge immediately ignited the team's fighting spirit. Meanwhile, I arrived at a secret beekeeper facility. Using the woman's fingerprint, I unlocked the entrance. Then I logged into the organization's terminal using her credentials. From there, I located the scam company's headquarters, grabbed a few useful tools, and headed out. The next day, Verona briefed the FBI deputy director about my identity and my likely target. He immediately deployed a tactical team to stop my violent campaign of revenge. But the moment they entered the building, Wallace's private security force blocked them in the lobby. The governor had authorized these contractors, granting them permission to carry weapons across all 50 states. After making a few verification calls, the agents were forced to watch from outside. As they gathered to discuss their options, I quietly wandered over like an interested bystander. "Please move back to a safe distance. Thanks. Mind checking the service entrance? Or instead of rushing in, why not smoke them out?" "What did you just say?" "I think the firefighters deserve a break. I've kept them busy enough already." "And your name is?" "At the moment, Adam Clay." I had just exposed myself. At that point, a fight was unavoidable. I charged in alone against the entire team. Even the tactical unit was no match for me. Within moments, several agents were down, and I used one of them to gain entry into the building. Inside, the scam operation was still running at full speed. Wallace's security team arrived first. They warned the manager that the beekeeper was coming and demanded an immediate shutdown. The manager couldn't have cared less. "This place prints money, understand? Nobody's stopping me from making more." Then he called Danforth to complain. After hearing the situation, Danforth told the team leader to do whatever was necessary. "Your job is to protect me, not interfere with my profits." The team leader reluctantly complied. The manager smugly applauded as the security team withdrew. What he didn't know was that I had already blended into the crowd. One employee glanced at me and felt something was familiar. Then he looked at the photo on his desk and realized exactly who I was. Too late. I stepped into the center of the room and warned everyone to leave. But the manager only cared about money. "Anyone who moves is fired. No bonuses for 2 weeks. No breaks. Back to work." I got tired of listening to him and chose a random volunteer to make my point. "None of these people were innocent. If you run, we'll shoot. Somebody's getting hurt." "Then let's start with this guy." The guards immediately opened fire. I used the chaos to slip out of the lobby and prepare my counterattack. Then I triggered the alarm system and quietly waited for my prey to appear. There it was. Using a cable, I swung a rifle around and turned their own weapon against them. "Do you even know who you're working for? Why should I care? Whenever there's trouble, they call me." I seized the chance to strip the team leader of his weapon, but he immediately swung an axe at me. At the last second, I raised a fire extinguisher and blocked the killing blow. A loud crash followed, and the team leader dropped to the floor. Just then, Verona arrived with a tactical unit. She was the first one inside, but I had already prepared for that, stretching a hidden cable across the area. Several agents spotted movement and rushed into the elevator shaft, firing wildly upward. "You done yet? Reload. Everybody get out. You're all finished." The moment Verona saw it, she knew the elevator wasn't safe. "We're taking the stairs." Moments later, I returned to the lobby and appeared right behind the tactical team. This time, they were terrified. "Please don't kill me. I'm just middle management. I've never hurt anyone. I'd respect you more if you could at least look your victims in the eye while stealing from them." Then I grabbed the lobby manager and dragged him outside. Next came the nail gun. One shot after another. The manager insisted his bosses were incredibly powerful. "I told you, if I talk, I'm dead. If you don't talk, you're dead anyway." Eventually, he cracked. "I can't say it, but I can show you." At that moment, Verona arrived. She begged me to stop. "The law will deal with criminals." I told her some problems can't be solved by the law. That's when people like me step in. With that, I disappeared. Soon after, Verona uncovered the real mastermind. To her shock, it was Danforth. Meanwhile, Wallace was with Danforth. After learning the operation had failed, he told Danforth to go home and fend for himself. At the same time, a powerful woman received a call from her son. It turned out Danforth's mother was the sitting president of the United States. Meanwhile, Verona understood why I wanted revenge for Eloise, but her duty as an officer required her to report what she'd learned. The scam empire generated tens of billions of dollars every year, and the person behind it all was none other than President Jessica herself. Back when she ran for office, she financed much of her own campaign. After hearing the truth, the deputy director ordered complete secrecy, but Verona immediately revealed something even more troubling. My next target was Jessica. In the end, Verona was granted full authority to stop me at all costs. Eloise really did have a brave daughter. Not much more to say about that. Meanwhile, attention shifted to the president's estate. The place was heavily guarded, with armed agents stationed everywhere. Verona arrived as part of the FBI security detail. And of course, Wallace wasn't about to miss a chance to protect his goddess. This time he even hired a team of mercenaries. The bearded leader cursed the moment he heard he was up against a beekeeper. He claimed he'd killed one before, though the price had been steep. At the same time, I was heading toward the final battlefield. The president finally appeared, while the estate had already become a fortress. To keep me out, they even ordered every sewer entrance sealed. Every vehicle entering the estate was searched thoroughly, but they were already too late. I was cutting through a drainage grate. Then I pried open a manhole they hadn't sealed yet. Next, I pulled out a skateboard and used a parked truck as cover while moving forward. When a guard crawled underneath to inspect the vehicle, I silently took him down in a single move. Then I hid him beneath the truck. After that, I took his reflective vest and cap. Just like that, I slipped into the presidential estate. Meanwhile, the mercenaries led by the bearded man finally arrived on site. The estate was becoming a gathering place for every armed group imaginable. Elsewhere, I changed into a suit I had prepared in advance. Then I casually walked into the bar area as the FBI director met with the president. He reported the findings on the scam company. After hearing everything, the president summoned her son for answers, but Danforth insisted he was merely an investor. He invested in countless businesses. A scam company? He couldn't remember. The FBI director wasn't fooled. A few simple questions left Danforth speechless. At the same time, I deliberately exposed myself, and Verona immediately reported my position. Every security team went on high alert. "Move, go, hurry up." But everything was going according to my plan. I led them exactly where I wanted them. The bearded mercenary was the first to charge in. He surrounded me and ordered me to put my hands on my head and kneel. "So you're a beekeeper? The right hand of the system? Looks like trash to me." When Verona saw him preparing to shoot, she immediately stepped in. In her world, everything had to follow proper procedure. Seeing me unarmed, the mercenary made the classic villain mistake of talking too much. The battle was about to begin. Live or die? That hardly sounded like a difficult question. I already knew my answer. I burst out of the encirclement and seized a tactical commander, forcing him toward the main room. By then, chaos had already erupted inside. The president had always believed her son earned his fortune legitimately, but after learning the truth, she completely broke down and furiously confronted him. Danforth argued back without a shred of shame. "Without me paving the way, how would you have one? Trying to become president without money is just a fantasy." Mother and son erupted into a heated argument. That was when I entered the room. Notice something here. Throughout the fight, I used lethal force only against the mercenaries. The FBI agents got just enough to stay down. I've always had a clear sense of right and wrong. No matter what happened, I never lost sight of that line. I never hurt innocent people. As for these thugs, dealing with them barely took any effort. Before long, I had fought my way to the top floor. At the same time, the president finally made her decision. Even if it cost her the presidency, she was determined to expose her son's crimes. Her biggest regret was spoiling him for so many years and letting him become a monster. The moment I pushed open the top floor door, the bearded mercenary came charging straight at me. We immediately locked into close combat, and I have to admit, the guy knew what he was doing. He buried a knife deep into my stomach. I fought through the pain, pulled the blade out, and used the wall to steady myself. When neither of us was willing to back down, I shattered his prosthetic leg with a kick and used the opening to drive my blade into his arm. Without that leg, he couldn't couldn't keep fighting. All he could do was wait for the inevitable. I pressed the attack relentlessly and finished it with a crushing punch. The mercenary hit the floor and never got back up. Afterward, I stepped aside to bandage my wound. That's when Wallace showed up and told me to stop. He said the beekeepers existed to protect society and that I had gone too far. I reminded him that I retired a long time ago. This wasn't about the organization anymore. It was personal. I planted explosives on the door. Desperate to protect the woman he worshipped, Wallace threw himself in front of it. I simply twisted his arm, and the pain dropped him to the floor. At that same moment, Danforth snapped, pulled a gun, and shot the FBI director dead. Even I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Then I stepped out through the smoke. The moment Danforth saw me, he grabbed his own mother and used her as a shield. Verona arrived just in time, but her gun was pointed directly at me. I glanced out the window and carefully calculated my next move. Then I looked back at Verona and asked her a question that cut straight to the heart. You decide. Who do you really serve? The law or justice? Goodbye, Mom. The moment those words left his mouth, I fired a shot into his side and dropped him where he stood. Then I dove forward, smashed through the glass, and disappeared into the night. Verona came after me immediately. She was torn between duty and conscience. But in the end, she understood why I had done all of this. She realized that some forms of justice exist beyond rules written on paper. So she lowered her weapon and silently allowed me to finish what I had started. After that, I headed to the shoreline and retrieved the escape gear I had prepared earlier. Once I suited up, I slipped beneath the water and vanished into the endless ocean.